There is an excitement once again here at Nationwide Arena. Hello everyone, Dave Seaman along with Justin Boggs as we welcome you to a special developmental camp version of On the Bench with Columbus Wired. And Justin, things have gotten a little exciting around here. Of course, we'll talk more about it in a minute, but the Blue Jackets last week trading for Jeff Carter from the Philadelphia Flyers, which we'll talk about, but more importantly or more currently right now, developmental camp is here.
Well, yeah, this is a good chance to evaluate the players you have in your system. These are the youngest players, typically between ages 18 and 22. A couple very high prospects in the camp this year. You have Cam Atkinson, who was a Hobey Baker finalist, scored just a ton of goals for Boston College this season. He left college a year early, signed an entry-level deal over the spring, and he's on a he may end up in Springfield this year, but he certainly has a chance of being in the NHL in the near future. And of course, Ryan Johansson, who just stole the show for Team Canada in the World Juniors. He was the team's top pick last year, and he really feels that he has a good chance. We just talked to him a few minutes ago, and he feels he has a legitimate shot at making the club here in the fall.
Yeah, for sure. That's, I think it's a reachable goal. Obviously it's going to take a lot of hard work, but, I'm out here doing everything I can right now, so hopefully everything will fall into place the way I want it to.
And what's interesting about Johansson is the fact that 2 years ago, no one even knew who he was. So he's really taken strides over the last 2 years, of course, more specifically on that world or global sheet of ice this past spring.
Well, yeah, and he talked about it himself, just how he went from a relative unknown in hockey to someone, when he goes to the World Junior and playing for Team Canada, you get that attention of being an NHL player. They play in front of big crowds in the World Juniors, and so he has that taste, and he might be NHL ready, or at least pretty close to it. A lot of people thought he was pretty close to being NHL ready coming out of training camp back in the fall. With he said he gained about 20 extra pounds over the last year, so he's got a more physical body, and he's quite a scorer. He's a gifted scorer, and we might see him in the NHL, if not this season, certainly probably next season.
And the camp is the culmination of the draft, and the big news here in Columbus wasn't even the draft. It wasn't the fact, and it was the fact that the Blue Jackets traded Jeff Carter, but it's who is no longer in the organization. Jake Voracek traded to Philadelphia, or in the trade, along with a first and a third round draft pick to Philadelphia. But then on draft day, on the second day, Nikita Filatov also traded. 2 former #1 draft picks gone.
Well, the Filatov one is certainly a little more interesting. I think there's a lot more to talk about. Voracek, it's disappointing for him because everyone thought he was going to come in and be a 60-point scorer this season. He was in the mid-40s. But you look at the Filatov situation, a guy who 2 years ago was expected to be one of the top scorers in the NHL by now. He didn't pan out for the Blue Jackets. He said that he wanted to go back to Russia. And honestly, it probably would have been a good move for him. You look at, he's really right now an AHL forward, and he struggled even in Springfield. You're a minus defenseman in the minors. There's no way he could have made it in the NHL anytime soon.
And it's a sad situation for Filatov when you think in only his 3rd or 4th NHL game he had a hat trick against Minnesota. He came in this past season, and this was, of course, after going to Russia, getting exiled, getting into it with Ken Hitchcock, the former head coach. He even came into this past season, and I can remember watching him on the power play in the games in Sweden to start the season, and he looked like he was going to be dangerous. He just never was able to pick up his game.
I think there was that pressure playing in the NHL, the two-way part of it, that wore him down, I think, getting from one end of the ice to the other, getting bruised up. Yeah, he looks great in the preseason. He looks great early on in the season. But as the season wears on, you see him 6 weeks into a season, he's much slower. And I think a lot of it's just the physicality of the NHL. If you look at when he played in the KHL a couple years ago, he blew that league away, which might tell you where the talent level is in that league. But he wasn't able to do that in the AHL, which has a very physical brand of hockey. And I think it's just the physical toll of playing that style of hockey that we play here in America really was taking a toll on him.
That's Scott Houseland's first 2 draft picks, #1 or top first round draft picks, are now gone. He even said on draft day, I made a mistake. We made a mistake as an organization. We shouldn't have taken him. And when you think about even going back into the Blue Jackets history, a guy like Nikolai Zherdev, think it's going to be a while before the Jackets draft a Russian?
I think there's always been a reluctance in just NHL in general. Blue Jackets have been pretty accepting of Russians. As we've seen, we've had 2 here, but the general reluctance, because there's always that threat of going back to Russia. They're offering, the government there is offering these guys top dollar to come back, and sometimes if you're a lower middle of the road NHL or you get a chance to make the big dollars in Russia, playing at home, if I were them, I would go back and do that.